G'day. In this series of videos, we're using Python and Psychopy to create an auditory psychophysics experiment. If this is the first video that you've seen, I just want to let you know that we do have about 7 or 8 videos before this in this playlist, if I can remember to put them in a playlist, where we start from nothing and we build up a program from first principles using the Python language and Psychopy libraries and some other libraries as well. So if you would like to stop this video here, start from the beginning and work your way up, then you should be up to speed with what we're doing. Now, I do take my time in explaining a lot of the concepts, and so some of the videos are quite long. But I've done this for a reason, because it means that hopefully a lot of the mistakes that we make, you won't make, and you should get an idea of how to approach some of these experimental procedures and how to create some experimental programs using Python. Now, if, however, you just want to jump straight in, what we've got at the moment is a program that will basically present a stimulus in either of one of 2 time windows, time window 1 or time window 2. We've created that stimulus, and what it's going to do is it will wait for the subject to press either F or J. If they think that stimulus was presented in the first time window, they'll press F. If they think it occurred in the second time window, they'll press J. And what we're able to do at the moment is pretty much just wait for that subject to respond, and then we'll go into the next trial. We can set the number of trials. The other thing that this program can do at the moment is to save an experimental file. We're using pandas and a data frame to do that. And then we can load up the last lot of information in that experiment and then populate some variables, and then we can get the current updated variables and save that to the end of the file. So these are the sorts of things that we've done in the previous videos. So if you watched that previous video, you'll realize now that what we wanted to do was to record the subject's responses. So remember, in our file, we had a data frame, and one of the things that we wanted to respond to was, what was the subject response? In which of the 2 time windows did the subject say they said that the response occurred? I've done a lot of videos today, so my mind is not working so goodly. So we can say here, if they pressed F, remember, if they pressed F, we're going to say updated sub-response equals 0. Remember, the first time window we're going to call 0. The second time window we're going to call 1. If the subject pressed J, the updated sub-response now is going to be number 1. And then once they've finished that trial, we'll then populate the subject response column with the updated subject response. So there'll be either a 1 or a 0. The next thing that we can do is, if we look back to the staircase method that we're trying to mimic here, is yes, it's good to know if they thought it was in 1 or in 2, but what we really want to know was the subject correct? Did they get it right? And so this is what we say here. If the stimulus was presented in 1 and the subject said it was in 1, then that's a correct response, and we say the stimulus was detected. And then we know that this is going to have implications, because if they satisfy the up and down criterion, we're going to need to change the stimulus intensity on the next trial. So we are now able to exploit our program and the subject's responses to also make a value decision, correct or incorrect. So let's say if F in key, so if they push the F button, and if the current stimulus was presented in the first window. So remember, that's what we've got wind here for. Where do we have it? So order, because remember, we've randomized the order of stimulus into 0 and 1, and the updated wind is 0. So if they said it was in the first window by pressing F, and if the stimulus was presented in F, so if wind equals 0, so we'll put a little comment here. So stimulus was in the first window and the subject said first. Okay, we will print the following debug statement. Subject correct. And what we could do now is we can say updated correct equals 1. Because we're going to say a 1 means they got it correct. A 0 means they did not get it correct. So if they push the F key and if the stimulus was in the first window, they got it correct. However, else if wind equaled 1, so this means that we want that there. What have I done wrong? If F and key, if wind said that, print debug subject correct. Something's not right. I've not done something correct here. There we go. So again, I don't edit out my mistakes as they occur because we're going to learn from it. So the learning point here, make sure you've got your indentations correct. So we're going to print debug subject, and also contribute to why my videos are so damn long. Subject was incorrect. Okay, updated correct equals 0. Good. Now we have to do the same thing for the second time window. So if, we'll just put a comment in here. So stimulus was in second window, subject said first. So we have to do a very similar thing now in this second window. So if wind equals 0, so stimulus was in first, subject said second, right, print debug subject incorrect, and so updated, get that out of the way, equals 0. Else if wind, not window, equals 1. So now stimulus was in second, subject said second. They were correct. So print debug subject was correct. Updated correct equals 1. So we now need to put this updated correct into our correct. So updated correct. We'll see what happens. So we make sure that we've got nothing in our sandbox folder here. This is where we're going to save the file to for those people who are new to these videos. We've also got 10 trials to run. So here, what we'll do here is we'll put the headphones on so you can hear and I can hear. Subject's initials, we'll do me. So we're expecting 00011111001. So the first for the first three will be in the first window, and so forth. So we'll get the first one correct. We'll get the second one correct. We'll get the third one incorrect. We'll get the fourth one correct. Incorrect. Correct. Correct. We'll get this one incorrect by pushing 2. We'll get this one correct. Okay, we'll see whether or not that worked. So it's good that we've got all this output here because we can compare what we've done trial by trial with what we've saved. we've realized that it's working or that it's not working, we can delete all those statements. So the time point one. Okay, so remember this first row here is our initialization row. We can delete that. Our experiment starts here with trial number 0. So the first one, observation window was 0. Okay, so yep, that's correct. Subject response, the subject responded 0. The subject was correct. So if this is the same, this should be 1. If these are different, okay, this column should be a 0. So they're the same, that's a 1. They're the same, that's a 1. They're different, that's 0. They're the same, that's 1. They're different, that's a 1. So hey, we've got a problem here. It was in 1. The subject responded that it was in 0. So this is trial number, what's that, 4? So we've got an error in our logic here. So they're both 1, it's a 1, they're both 0, that's the same, it's a 1, 0, 1, that's incorrect, that's correct, that's correct. So I've got an error here if the subject responded 0, but the observation was actually in 1. So let's have a look at what I've done here. So subject is in 0, updated correct is 0. It's because I put core, not correct. So that's another mistake. So make sure, second learning point, make sure you use the correct variable names. Otherwise, it seems to work. So we'll do this again. Okay. So we'll try and get a mixture of correct and incorrect for both time windows. We'll get the first one correct. We'll get the second one wrong. We'll get that one correct. We'll get that one incorrect. Correct. Correct. Incorrect. Incorrect. This is surprisingly difficult. Okay. Let's see what we get out. Right. So, observation window, subject response. If these two are the same, we should have a correct response. So 1 1, that's correct. 1 0, that was incorrect. That's good. These are the same, so that should be a 1. These are different, that should be a 0. These are both 1s, so that should be a 1. These are both 0, so that should be a 1. That's correct. These are different. These are all different, so they should be 0s. These are both the same, so that should be a 1. Okay. Let's have a look to see whether or not we're actually recording the correct things. So the first trial, the window should be a 1. Okay, so yep, window was 1, and the subject was correct. They responded with a F. Okay, that's good. So this seems to be working. We now have access. Sorry, not access. We now are able to say whether or not the subject was correct or incorrect. So we'll leave this video here. In the next video, we're going to start to populate this last column because this will give us an updated correct count. Remember, in our staircase method, we are going to use a 2 down rule, which means that after we finish this first phase of getting close to threshold, once we've got that first reversal, the subject needs to get 2 correct before we go down 1. 2 correct before we go down in threshold, or down in sound intensity. Every time the subject gets it incorrect, the next stimulus intensity is going to go up. Okay, so every time it gets it wrong, it's an easy rule to figure out. But we have to keep a tally of, well, how many times has that subject been correct in a row? That's what we're going to answer in the next video. So I'll see you there.